Hey guys, welcome to Just Cook Something. Today we are going to be making biryani. If you find that this video is too long, I do have a shorter version of this just to get straight to the point. If you're a beginner trying to make this recipe, then make sure you watch the entire video because I'm going to run you through each step on making this. And the ingredients are pretty straightforward. So you have your meat, your rice, your onion, tomato, cilantro, and your mint leaves. Those are optional. We're not actually going to be using any of those. It's just the meat, rice, onion, plain yogurt, some oil, and then of course the Shan biryani mix. Let's get started. First thing we have to do is actually prep the rice. I don't actually go by this because they don't really give too much detailed instructions, and that's separate. The rice is always the hardest part, I find. Everything else is pretty easy. So let's make the rice first. We're gonna use basmati rice. So that's this right here. And we're gonna do 2 cups of rice. There's a lot of rice we're making because we're doing close to around 1 kg. That's 2.2 pounds of chicken. It's boneless. If you have bone-in chicken, you can use that too, but we're just going to be using boneless, just make life easier. I'm just going to put this aside and then we're going to clean our rice. You just need to rinse it in cold water. Some people use hot water. Not supposed to use hot water. You always have to use cold water. And we're just going to rinse it for maybe 3 times. So you can see it's already cloudy. So we're going to pour out all that. And then I'm gonna rinse it again. Some people use a strainer. Some people like to dig their hands in the rice and really get it clean. I feel like that's not necessary. Really, all you're just doing is making sure the water is clear after a few rinses. If you don't feel like doing 2 cups, you can do 1.5 cups or even 1 cup. Just cut your meat portions down by half. All right, I think that's good. I'm just gonna let this soak now. So fill it all up. And we're just gonna leave it and let it soak for at least 30 minutes. But I'm just gonna let this soak until we're ready to actually start cooking the rice. And now we'll move on to the chicken. This is close to 1 kg, so this is actually perfect for what we're going to be using. So we're going to use all this chicken. Now, some people like to do this. This is totally optional. We're actually going to clean this chicken. If you don't clean chicken, that's totally fine. And cleaning chickens, basically, you put in some vinegar, some water, you let it soak for a bit, and then you just pour out the water, and then technically it's clean. Some people say you shouldn't clean your chicken. I honestly don't know who's right, who's wrong, but in any case, when you are cleaning your chicken, you should always be wearing gloves. You don't want this stuff splattering anywhere. And you should always use your cutting board that is only meant for raw meats. And we're just gonna first deskin some of the fat on the chicken. So we're just gonna take out, it's already deskinned, but it has some fatty pieces on there that we don't actually want. And then we're going to add the vinegar and the water and then give it a little rinse. Pro tip, a little paper towel, soak it for a bit, and then place it under your cutting board. So it gives it some grip so it doesn't move. Because you are dealing with raw meat, you want to just leave some space. So we're going to take out some of these fat pieces we don't want. If you like keeping it, you can keep it, but I like to cut it out because too much fat is apparently not good for you. At least that's what my wife says. All right, so that looks good. And we're not actually going to cut these in pieces or anything. We're just going to dump it in there because the whole piece is good enough. And again, if you have bone in, that's totally fine as well, but I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to deskin any chicken legs or anything like that, so I'm just going to get the boneless and just go with that, and it works just as good. All right, so you can see here there's quite a bit of fat, so that stuff, you don't want that in your food. See, like this type of stuff you don't want in your biryani, just won't come out nice. Yeah, and always be careful when you are cutting. Don't cut towards you, always cut away. You don't want to get an accident with raw chicken. So always cut away. That way you avoid getting any cuts. Now we just need to clean all this. So we're going to pour some vinegar in here. Gonna open this up. All right, now we are going to put cold water in here. And we don't want this splattering, so we're gonna just lower the water just a bit. Your sink should be clear when you're dealing with raw chicken, so wash your dishes. I already washed my dishes, because you don't want to pour raw chicken on your dishes. You're just spreading the raw chicken everywhere basically, and it's also gonna spread when you're putting it in the dishwasher. So always do this when your sink is empty. All right, I'm gonna set that on the side there. We're not gonna like move it around too much because you don't want to splatter it, but we are just gonna slowly make sure the vinegar mixes well with the water. So just kind of stir it a bit. So you can see as you slowly mix, you can see as it starts to get a little bit more cloudy. When we're pouring it in here, just need to be a little careful that it doesn't splatter. Just go gently. And then we're just gonna do one more soak. Looks good. The water isn't as cloudy as before. You can see some fat hanging around there, just floating. Looks really gross. That's done. Again, we're gonna have to sterilize everything in here. No matter how clean you are, you always have to sterilize everything. I'm going to shift this over here. And I'm just going to put it in here to absorb any of the extra water. And then all of this is going straight in the garbage. All right, let's cut our onion. We're not gonna like dice it really small. We're just gonna leave it very long because we're gonna fry it and we're gonna use that to mix with the chicken when we add our Shan mix. Let's cut it first. Gonna cut off both ends. Now the recipe calls for 3 onions, but I'm just gonna use 1. The recipe actually is meant for 3 cups of rice too, and I feel like that's a bit too much of rice. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just gonna use 1 onion. If you wanna use 2, you can. If you wanna use 3, totally can. And again, I'm just dicing it this way because you want it nice and long. And you just need to break these up a bit. Now my eyes are already starting to tear, so I'm just gonna throw all this out. So now that the chicken is cleaned, we have our onions cut. Next thing we wanna do is get our mix in a bowl, and we're gonna add some water. Again, we're not gonna use the entire mix. I feel like that might be too much. Even though it states on the back of here that you should use 1 kg of meat for the whole packet, that is just too much. Probably use about half. And as soon as you open this, like the smell is so strong, but it smells amazing. So I'm gonna use about half of the mix. If you want this really spicy, you can add more of the mix. If you don't want it too spicy, you can add extra yogurt. And we'll do that at the end. Now that we have all of our stuff ready, we're going to fry the onions first. So let's do that. So we're gonna do it in our Dutch oven, and we're just gonna get this hot. You wanna fry the onions till they're nice and brown. And I'll add some ghee as well. If you don't know what ghee is just basically clarified butter. It's great for sauteing and frying, especially steaks. It's actually really good it's a good alternative than using butter. So that's why I like to use ghee. Ghee has a really high smoking point, so you can actually fry it on pretty high without it smoking and making a huge smoke fest in your house. If you don't have a cast iron dish, stainless steel is probably your next best thing, but I recommend using a high hot because all the splattering is just gonna splatter everywhere, so it's best to do it in a high Dutch oven like this. You can see it's already getting a little steamy, this because the vegetable oil is already hot. I'm gonna take our onions and we're gonna start sauteing these. We're just gonna break it up a bit, just so it's a bit loose. And we're gonna just saute it until it gets nice and brown. Once this is nice and brown, then we're gonna add our chicken and our Shan mix. Gonna pour some water in our Shan mix. Just mix this up nicely. And you kind of have to gauge how much mix you want to use. I feel like half is good, but again, if you want more of the mix in there in your chicken, then yeah, we can totally add more. As the spices are so strong, you won't feel like it's not enough spice. It's usually less is better, because if you put too much, then it becomes way too strong. Let's check on our onions. Nice colors. Still need a few minutes though. The next thing we'll do now is add in our chicken. And we're gonna add in our mix. So get it all in there. And we're gonna mix this in. Make sure it's all nicely coated. And then this is the part where if you feel like maybe I need to add a bit more, then yeah, this is where you would add your Shan mix. And this is why I say it's always best to put less, because the Shan mixes usually tend to overestimate how much you should be putting, and then you end up putting way too much and it becomes way too strong. Let that fry for a bit, and then we will come back in a few minutes to see how it's looking, and if we do need to add more, we will. If not, we'll leave it as is. So while we wait on this, so this is just plain yogurt. This is what we're gonna add in after. But before we even do that, make sure our chicken is getting nicely cooked, because if we add this in too early, this might start to curd with the heat. It'll start to turn into chunks. So let's wait a bit, let this cook for a bit, and then we'll add it. And I'm setting my gas stove to around 4, so that's around medium high, or at least for this stove. Yours might be different, and I'm using a gas stove. It's much more quicker. If you're using other stoves, it's going to take a little longer. If you have a cast iron, the heat retains in the cast iron for a very long time, so that actually helps speed up the process. Now that the water's starting to evaporate, and I'm taking a look at the chicken itself, how much coating it has, I feel like maybe we can add a bit more Shan spice, but at this point we'll hold off for now and just wait a bit and see where we're at after. If you guys are enjoying this video, hit that subscribe and hit that notification bell. It is much appreciated. And also leave a comment if you find this useful. I'm trying to improve on these videos. Any feedback is good feedback. All right, so you can see it's coming there. Maybe we can add a bit more. So I might just do a little dash. And we still have quite a bit in here, so I think that should be good. Just really let it soak in all that spice. It smells already amazing. I think that's good. Now we're gonna add yogurt. We're gonna add around a cup of yogurt. If you want it less spicy, then you can add 2 cups of yogurt. So it's totally optional how much yogurt you're adding. Anywhere from 1 to 2 cups is good enough, I think, for this portion of chicken. I'm not gonna measure this, it's just kind of guessing at this point. Again, it's how much you feel is necessary, so I'm kind of guessing. So that's more than 1 cup. And now we just mix it all in. So just be careful when mixing, no splatters. All right, now I'm just gonna spread it out in here. Should be good. And then we're just gonna put the lid on it and set it to low. And then we're just gonna leave it. So for the rice, we had it soaking. It's been over a half hour now. So it's been soaked. We're just gonna drain all this out. There's still some water in here, that's okay. And now we're gonna boil some water. The tricky part with biryani rice is you're not cooking the rice fully. You're cooking it once you do the layering in here. We're gonna cook it to around 3/4 cooked, and then that's when we stop it. What we have to do is boil the water. I'm just using filtered water. And because we don't want the rice to stick in here, we're gonna add some ghee. And I think around 2 teaspoons, doesn't matter. So we have to wait for this to come to a boil. And the trick is on high heat, once it starts bubbling, we're gonna add in our rice and we're gonna stir it for around 7 minutes. Once it's all stirred and mixed for 7 minutes, we're gonna drain it and put it on a big plate, let it cool off. And then by then our chicken should be done and we're gonna start layering it. Some other things we're gonna add in here. We're gonna do a cinnamon stick, 2 bay leaves, around 4 or 5 cardamoms, and cloves. And we're gonna just put it in right now. We're gonna add some salt. That's about less than a teaspoon. Everything's in here. Now we're just gonna wait until it's time to add the rice, and that's when this starts boiling. So get our plate ready, so when we are done and the rice is cooked, we'll put it on here. All right, so now you can see it is starting to bubble. So this is where we add in our rice. So I'm just gonna dump that in here, and we're gonna set a timer for 7 minutes. Now we just stir and keep going, and for 7 minutes straight. And remember, if it starts to get too high, you can always turn it down slightly, and that would bring the bubbles down too. This is called living life on the edge with these bubbles. So you can already see it's starting to come out looking really good. It's been about 7 minutes, and I'm gonna drain this. I'm gonna place it on here, spread it out. All right, now that that's done, let's check on our biryani and see how that's coming along. So this is looking good. It's looking like it's done cooking. Let's take a quick poke. Oh yeah, we're fully cooked. All right, so now that our rice is done, or almost done, we're gonna start setting up the layering. Now to do that, I'm actually gonna take all the chicken out of here and put it in our pan that we use to make the rice. So once I remove all the chicken and all the pieces in here, so let's just turn up the heat, and we're gonna thin this out because it's too much liquid. You don't want too much liquid in your biryani, or else it'll just become too soggy. All right, it's starting to thin out now. So what I'm going to do is take some of this and pour it in the chicken. All right, the rest now, we'll just let it evaporate. All right, now we turn off the heat, and then we're just gonna scrape off all this. So we're gonna try to scrape out as much as we can. And now we're going to put some ghee and just coat the inside in here so we don't actually have the rice sticking on here. So I'm gonna just pour some here. Make sure your stove is off so there's no flame. And we're gonna just grab it and just get the ghee all coated around and try to get the edges as well. Now, this is where we do the layering. So we do the rice first and then the chicken. Add all the rice. Okay. We're not gonna compact it down. We're just going to push it aside. If you press it really hard on the rice, it's not gonna come out nice. Then we're going to layer our chicken. Just layer it. Take our ghee and add, we don't have food coloring, so we're just gonna add some ghee, and that'll give it a nice color as well. Add our last layer. Just add a little drops of ghee just for color. Turn on the heat, and we're gonna let it simmer for around, say, 15 minutes. So I'll keep it just in between 2 and low. We'll come back in around 15 minutes and everything should be done. All right, it's been about 15 minutes, and let's take a look. Wow. Just gonna check the rice. Smells amazing. Well, the rice really came out nice and fluffy. Wow, this came out really tasty. The rice is not mushy, it's like really fluffy and soft. And the chicken, when you take that first bite of the chicken, the spice doesn't hit you right away, and you really feel that flavor kick in It's really, really tasty. Oh man, this is so good. Give it a try. Let me know how it goes in the comments below. If you guys like these videos, please hit that subscribe and hit that like button and that notification bell. If you're interested in other future videos, give suggestions, anything like that, please put it out in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.